Here is something the tennis media absolutely does not want you to figure out. They have built an entire content machine, and that machine runs on one fuel: manufactured panic around Eala. Every time she demolishes someone on court, every time she pushes a top 5 player to the edge of their absolute limit and makes them look genuinely uncomfortable, the same people who should be celebrating her instead immediately pivot to the same tired, recycled, embarrassingly predictable question. Does she need to fire Joan Bosch? Did she really turn down $1 million coaching offer? Why won't she upgrade her team? It happens every single time, with the precision of a factory assembly line. And today, we are going to burn that narrative completely to the ground. Because this coaching narrative surrounding Eala is not just wrong, it is embarrassingly wrong. And today, we are going to tear it apart piece by piece, look at the real truth behind her relationship with Joan Bosch, and explain why her refusal to chase celebrity coaches is not stubbornness. It is quite possibly the single most intelligent, most mature, most strategically brilliant career decision being made in women's tennis today. But first, let's talk about the culture that is producing this narrative. Because the WTA has developed a coaching ecosystem that is genuinely one of the most toxic, panic-driven environments in professional sport. Watch what happens when a top 20 player loses in the second round of a major. The panic sets in almost immediately. Within weeks, sometimes within days, a coach gets fired. And who gets hired to replace them? Someone famous. Someone with a massive social media following, a legendary reputation, and a price tag that would make your eyes water. Patrick Mouratoglou, Brad Gilbert, Sasha Bajin. Names that generate headlines, names that make sponsors feel comfortable, names that give the impression of progress even when nothing has fundamentally changed. The media adores this cycle because it produces drama, it produces content, it produces the endless churn of narratives that keeps the tennis conversation alive between Grand Slams. And right now, the tennis media is looking at Eala, her extraordinary fan base, her skyrocketing ranking, her growing list of corporate partnerships, and their brains simply cannot process why she isn't playing along. In their minds, she has become a superstar. Therefore, she needs a superstar coach. And when the rumors they manufacture about rejected $1 million offers don't get confirmed or denied, they just keep amplifying them. Because in a sport defined by panic and money, loyalty is genuinely incomprehensible to them. So let's talk about who Joan Bosch actually is. And more importantly, let's talk about what he represents to Eala. Because this is where most people who push this narrative completely fall apart. Joan Bosch was not hired when the sponsorship deals started coming in. He was not recruited after the ranking climbed high enough to attract serious attention. He did not appear in the player's box when the cameras started flashing. Joan Bosch was there when Eala was 13 years old, a kid who had just packed her bags, left her family in the Philippines, and traveled thousands of miles to the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca with nothing but talent, hunger, and a terrifying amount of uncertainty ahead of her. Stop and think about what that moment actually means. 13 years old, foreign country, no parents nearby, surrounded by other elite young players all competing for the same dream. The Nadal Academy is not a holiday tennis camp. It is an unrelenting physical and psychological grind. 5 hours of daily training, academic pressure running alongside athletic development. The kind of exhaustion that makes a teenager question everything they ever wanted. The blisters, the early mornings, the moments of pure self-doubt that hit hardest when you are alone in a room far from home, wondering whether any of it is worth it. Joan Bosch was on the other side of that net through all of it. He was not there for the glory. He was there for the grind. He helped forge Eala's game from raw material into the tactical weapon it has become today. He is not just a coach. He is one of the fundamental architects of who she is as a tennis player and, arguably, as a person. And in professional tennis, that kind of trust is not just valuable. It is essentially irreplaceable. Tennis is the loneliest competitive environment on the planet. You cannot call a timeout. You cannot sub out. You cannot huddle with your teammates when the pressure becomes unbearable. When you are down a break in the deciding set, lungs burning, crowds screaming, and your own brain starting to feed you doubt and anxiety, you have exactly one lifeline. You look up into the player's box, and in that moment, the face you see has to mean something real. It has to carry weight that goes beyond a contract and a reputation. It has to belong to someone who has seen you at your absolute lowest and helped you climb back up. Someone who knows precisely what to say, or precisely when to say nothing at all. No matter how large the offer, you cannot purchase that level of psychological intimacy. It is not available at any price. It has to be built over years, through shared suffering, through the kind of experiences that leave permanent marks on both people. Alex Eala and Joan Bosch have that. It exists between them in a way that is genuinely rare on the professional tour. Now let's address the tactical argument, because this is where even the more serious tennis observers tend to get it wrong. The criticism often sounds sophisticated on the surface. Joan Bosch has never coached a world number one, therefore he lacks the experience to take her to the elite level. It sounds reasonable until you actually examine what Alex Eala's game is built on and where it came from. Her entire style is rooted in the Spanish clay court philosophy that the Nadal Academy was literally constructed to teach. Heavy, suffocating topspin that pushes opponents deep behind the baseline. Point construction that is methodical, patient, chess-like, building pressure across long rallies rather than gambling on winners. Extraordinary lateral movement and defensive instincts that turn opponents' aggression back against them. The willingness to grind through brutal exchanges without panic, without shortcuts, without giving away free points. We have watched her take Jessica Pegula to the absolute limit. We have watched her physically and mentally exhaust seasoned veterans across multiple surfaces. That is not happening by accident. That is the product of a system Bosch has built specifically around her physical tools, her left-handed shot shapes, and her particular competitive mentality. The game plan is working. The results are improving. The ranking is moving. So the logical question to ask is, why would you fire the architect of a system that is currently working, just to bring in someone who is inevitably going to want to leave their own fingerprints on the player? Because that is what celebrity coaches do. They arrive with their own philosophies, their own preferred techniques, their own desire to take credit for the eventual success. They tweak the grip, they adjust the toss, they alter the footwork. Not necessarily because the player needs it, but because a coach cannot justify their enormous price tag without making visible changes. Alex Eala does not need to be dismantled and rebuilt from scratch. She needs continuity. She needs the steadiest possible hand on the wheel during the most important developmental years of her career. And the fact that she understands this at 20 years old is genuinely staggering. Think about the pressure converging on her from every direction right now. An entire nation, the EA Army, millions of Filipino fans who have invested their hearts in her success, expecting Grand Slam results. A media apparatus constantly telling her she needs to make changes. Sponsors with their own opinions quietly making themselves heard. It would be extraordinarily easy to crack under all of that, to point the finger at her coach after a painful loss, to fire him for the optics, to hire a famous name that satisfies the narrative. That is the path of least resistance. That is what most players do. She refuses, completely and absolutely refuses. And that refusal traces back to something much deeper than tennis strategy. It connects directly to the values her grandfather, Lolo Bob, taught her on the public courts back in the Philippines before any of this began. Loyalty to the people who showed up before the spotlight. Gratitude toward the individuals who helped build the foundation. The understanding that you do not abandon the people who constructed the house just because you finally got invited to something bigger. Joan Bosch understands Alex Eala in ways that go beyond what can be captured in match statistics or tactical analysis. He understands the cultural weight she carries as a representative of an entire nation. He understands her family dynamics, her psychological makeup, the particular ways that pressure affects her during matches. He knows how to protect her mental space from the chaos of the media circus surrounding her career. The stability he provides is not just professional, it is deeply personal. And that stability is directly reflected in what we see on court. The calmness under pressure, the ability to rattle off consecutive games against veterans when her back is against the wall, the steely composure that has become one of her most terrifying competitive weapons. There is no drama in that player's box, no conflicting philosophies fighting for dominance, no ego battles between a high-profile coach and a management team, just trust, clarity, shared purpose, and the deep, unspoken communication between a player and the man who essentially raised her on the tennis court. So the next time one of those clickbait headlines fires across your timeline, screaming about rejected million-dollar offers and coaching upgrades, remember this conversation. Look at the way she competes. Look at the focus behind her eyes when the match gets tight and everything is on the line. That is not an accident. That is the direct product of an environment Joan Bosch helped build, and that Alex Eala has been wise enough to protect. She does not need a celebrity standing in her corner. She is the celebrity. What she needs is the one person who has always known exactly how her engine runs. Now, I genuinely want to hear from the EA Army on this. Is Alex Eala's loyalty to Joan Bosch her single greatest competitive weapon right now? Or is there a part of you that wonders what a legendary supercoach could unlock in her game? Do you think continuity is the key to cracking the top 10? Or does she eventually need a new voice in her corner to take that final step? Drop your honest take in the comments below. Let's have the real conversation and drown out the media noise together. Hit the like button, subscribe if you want unfiltered WTA analysis, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next.